Welcome to the AI Corner. I'm Mike Bailey, here to spotlight the people shaping New Zealand's AI future. In today's episode, we're speaking with Justin Flitter. Justin has been at the forefront of AI education and strategy in New Zealand since founding New Zealand.ai in 2017, delivering over 300 talks, workshops, and events to help every business unlock the power of AI. He's one of the most active voices shaping AI literacy and adoption across the country. Welcome to the pod, Justin.
Good morning. Nice to see you, Mike.
You too, mate. You're on the front line with business leaders every day. How have you seen the narrative change since you established New Zealand.ai? Was it 8 years ago now?
Yeah, we've been on the road 8 years with this. I mean, back then, corporates in New Zealand were spending $1 million on a POC for a chatbot, right? We can probably do the same thing today for $500. So that's the shift, right? The technology has been democratized, and almost all of it has come down to the rise of large language models and generative AI. ChatGPT from OpenAI launched in October, November 22. It's not even 3 years, and that's been the game changer, right? It's put all of this technology into the browser that anyone can access for free. You can have, the world's smartest digital assistant sitting in your back pocket, pretty much knows almost everything, and if it doesn't, it will make it up. And we need to be using these tools to lift the tide, to help humans become smarter, to do what humans do best, and being human.
Yeah, of course. I think you hit the nail around. We need to be using these tools because we bury our heads in the sand and say, "Oh, it hallucinates, it doesn't work." I mean, that's not a reason to turn away and put it back in the drawer and hope for it to get better over time. We've got to work with it, feedback on it, improve it. And there's also an argument that, of course, it can hallucinate, but you can also make it not hallucinate with the way you set up your infrastructure and the way you provide it context and give it good system instructions and access to good data, right?
I still hear stories from people who work for companies and the instruction from the board or the CEO, it's not good enough yet. It's not accurate enough yet. I'm like, how accurate does it have to be? And do you apply the same logic to your hiring strategy?
I'd hazard a guess.
Because the latest research I read around hallucinations was like between 2 and 3%. So if that's the case, then I'm pretty sure I mince my words more than 2 to 3% of the time.
Also, hallucination is almost just another word for bias in a sense, isn't it? Because it's the information that the model has been trained on, and if it's giving you an answer that it thinks is correct based on some form of training, how is that different to me giving you a different point of view based on the media I consume or the education I've had compared to yourself?
Oh, look, totally. Just look around the misinformation that people had around COVID, right? So yes, on one hand, it can be based on the training data, but it's also where there's a gap in the knowledge. Or if you're asking ChatGPT, if you're giving it a PDF that's got 1 million words in it, ChatGPT is not going to be reading 1 million words. It's probably going to only read 200,000, right? So then it's just going to fill in the gaps because it doesn't have a context window big enough, right? So it's just going to fill in the gaps. Or it might be that you're asking it to do some research and it's pulling information from multiple sources and it just attributes, it connects two ideas from two different sources together as a truth, and so that changes the context of that.
Yeah.
So there's different ways that the tools will hallucinate, but effectively it's either it's not well trained, or it's trying to connect ideas, or it's trying to fill in the blanks, or it's trying to tell you something that it thinks you want to hear, but it's not really there.
It's a people pleaser at the end of the day, right? And yeah. I'm sure you, back in 2017, you were probably fighting to have conversations with people, whereas nowadays people are probably banging down your door to have a conversation. Would that be fair?
Yeah, to some extent. I mean, they're banging down the door now, that's for sure. But I started AI New Zealand in 2017 because I was curious around natural language. I've been a tech marketer forever. I was working for a company that had invested in, or was the same board was investing in a company in the UK called Aria, which was doing a lot of work around natural language generation. And so I became curious in how natural language could be used to understand root cause analysis in contact centers, to do sentiment analysis. So how could a CEO understand, take a pulse of the business on a daily basis, if that was ethical to do, or understand how their customers are feeling on a daily basis about the business and what the issues were, right? And so I started to go to a bunch of vendor events around Auckland and just meet a whole lot of other people like me trying to figure out, what is AI? Is it a technology that we should be interested in and curious about? And so we just started a meetup called the AI Show. We had the first one at a dark and dingy bar in Britomart, and Shannon Thomas, who was then the external PR for IBM, turned up, and she just said, look, we'll host the next one. And there started a long partnership with IBM. We worked with we brought a team of partners together. We built it up to 300 people a month coming along to an AI event. And we were just standing people on stage who were working with AI, building with AI, or using AI to solve a particular problem. And it was just showcase. We partnered with the AI Forum, which was then being run by Ben Reed, who has since written this fantastic book. And we produced then the two biggest AI conferences in New Zealand, 500 people at the at the ASB Waterfront Theatre, international speakers. And that was a catalyst for professional services, for software being developed with AI. Companies like Arcanum and Ace & Cox kind of took off through that time. And of course, throughout all of this, the AI Forum has been leading the way as the industry body and working with government on policy and enablement. And I've been working alongside doing private sector enablement, and 100% focused on helping New Zealand businesses and business leaders understand where, why, and how to be using AI and how to make it happen.
Yeah, talk about riding getting on the wave at the right time. You were sort of 5 years early, which was probably the right place to be to develop a few battle scars and understand where the market's at before the hype really began. And as you say, the last 3 years or so. What is the narrative like nowadays with companies that you speak with? Could you segment organizations into a couple of buckets of what you see in the market and who you work with?
The three industries that we're working with the most is construction, manufacturing, and professional service. So construction, and we're building a lot of partnerships deep into these industries to really understand the challenges, the processes, the business problems that they have that AI might be able to solve. And this is not just within a business, it might be vertical across the supply chain. And how does my AI talk to Carter's AI, or how does my AI talk to the council's AI for resource consent applications and all these types of things? So what are we seeing? We're seeing a lot of businesses out there that are playing around with various tools. They may have deployed Copilots. They might have a handful of users that are using ChatGPT, free or paid. They're experimenting, right? It's not adoption, it's experimentation. They might from occasionally be using these tools to draft emails, to summarize reports, to do things like that. It's ad hoc usage. And so they come to me, they come to us for advice on what tools should we be using, what are the tasks, what are the use cases, how do we manage the risks, and teach us how to do it. So we've got to find the ROI for AI. There has to be a business case, a company's strategy that this program is anchored to. And that's what we'll start doing. It's never going to get through, it's never going to have the focus it needs to be successful without it being anchored towards really clear business objectives. No business has ever won by cutting costs. Businesses don't want to lose people because finding people is really hard. Good people is really hard. Every business wants to create capacity for growth. If most businesses we talk to are running pretty much full tilt or a pretty high capacity, right? They've got a backlog of work that needs to get done, and they just don't know how to do it without having to hire more bums on seats to do it. So construction industry is a classic example. That industry's been stressed for a few years. Funding has been taken away. They're all competing for fewer jobs, but they all see green shoots. And so they want to be able to start build capacity in their business to grow without having to significantly grow their cost structure as well. So if we can free up 5 hours a week across all of their back office team, then that's a meaningful uplift in their potential.
Significant for sure. What do you feel is the biggest barrier for businesses to understand that and to focus on that as part of their conversations with yourselves? The ROI piece.
Willingness from leadership. So again, it goes back to strategic focus.
Mm.
We're seeing a lot of use of AI being driven bottom up, right? Where 44% of workers that were surveyed in the Cultivate report that's recently been published are using AI on a daily basis, but only 13% have had any official training.
Okay.
So they're figuring it out as they go. They want to be more effective and efficient at work. So they're just bringing AI in their back pocket, which is also the biggest security risk, because as an employer, you've got no control or no visibility over what's being done. It's outside of your tenancy. This data, if they're using it from the business, is coming out of your tenancy into their AI accounts. And you're also not benefiting from any of the IP that's been created from those interactions either.
Yeah, it's almost as if the resistance is more emotional rather than technical from some businesses. Leaders banning ChatGPT because they don't fully understand it. That's fear rather than a strategy or a sort of intentional approach.
So anxiety is born from a lack of knowledge, right? So those business leaders who go, hey, look, AI is just not good enough yet. It's not accurate enough yet, right? So my first question is, talk to me about the last time you used ChatGPT. How did you prompt it? What was the problem that you solved? How did you go about that to test whether or not it's accurate enough for you? And how did you apply the same rule to your hiring structure, your hiring program? Because if the AI tool has to be 100% accurate all the time, does the same rule apply to your humans? Because guaranteed it doesn't, right? So why does a digital co-worker somehow have to be more accurate than your human co-workers before you will even start to engage with them?
It's a fascinating mental model, and I think an accurate one at that, considering that the AI can do things, in theory, more reliably 24/7 at a cheaper cost than what the human will charge out for, right? So your cost per use of using human workers versus digital workers to get a job done, you'd think it makes sense to apply the same logic at least.
It's just an interesting pushback on them to challenge that perspective, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people have these predetermined opinions or these perspectives about artificial intelligence that are actually just old and outdated. And by that, I mean, they might have formed them 2 months ago, but those ideas that they have just aren't relevant anymore, right? The world's changed. The capability of AI is doubling every 7 months, if not faster. So we've got to, in any of the workshops, if I come up against anything like that, I'm just like, okay, let's just pause and let's do an exercise in ChatGPT, in Perplexity, in Claude, in Gemini, right? Let's do the same task in each of them. And let's just look at the response that we get, the depth of complexity of that response, and then you be the judge then.
Give it a fair go almost.
And jaws drop.
There you go. And do you feel that this is a New Zealand issue or problem or barrier, or is this a global, just human problem barrier that we're going to need to overcome and educate through?
This is not a New Zealand problem, right? I speak to people doing similar work to me in Canada, in the UK. They're coming up against exactly the same barriers, concerns. It's the trends are very similar.
Okay. And I suppose thinking about New Zealand relative to other countries, what do you think our advantages are when it comes to AI and opportunities for us as a country to lead in certain areas or to really innovate?
Yeah, I mean, we're quick to try and slow to adopt sometimes. So New Zealand has this beautiful mixture of culture and identity and freedom, if you like, to explore, to be using these tools, to actually be a world leader in a lot of different elements around AI, right? We're a democracy, we're pretty much politically neutral. We have iwi around New Zealand already building their own models. already thinking about how their heritage and their stories need to be captured in a large language model and an AI model so that they are not dissolved over time, so that they exist forever. And so using AI to hold that truth, to anchor the truth in those stories, right? Because the models are trained on their data. And I love the analogy because it flows through to the way that businesses build IP. And when you've got 2 or 3 people in an architectural firm or any business that's been working in the company for 30 years and they go off to retire, it's like all of that IP walks out the door. And so if you could only distill down those stories that almost anchor that company in its heritage and culture and identity and strengths, then that creates a huge amount of IP that can be beneficial if they ever want to sell. It can anchor new employees and why they want to be a part of that story. So saving that and creating a model around what's happened in your business over its entire lifetime is exactly the same thought process and reason for being and purpose, is because you want to hold on to that heritage and you don't want it to become diluted with AI and someone else's model trying to understand your story.
Yeah, talking different languages, aren't they? And so, do you come across a lot of organizations where the CEO still says, this isn't for us? And is that the narrative that you tend to put to them around loss of context knowledge? And of course, that makes more sense for older businesses than, say, newer ones. But is that a common resistance you hear?
To be fair, the businesses that are coming to me are not humming and hawing about the use of AI, right? They have already majority of them have already made a commitment that AI is going to become a strategic strength to their business, right? That's why they're coming to invest time and effort in working with us. But we might uncover 1 or 2 people in their team or a part of that process that are skeptics, that are a little bit unsure or uneasy because they haven't spent the time or don't know, and we can work through that. But pretty much every business that comes to me, we've been experimenting. We know we have to do this, otherwise we're going to be on the back foot in a year's time. We can see that we're not going to be able to catch up. So if our competitor is a year ahead of us in their AI journey, we're screwed.
Yeah.
Now, in saying that, it's not too late, depending on who your competitors are and how long they've been working in the space. But companies are starting to realize we have to go now, and we have to start building our AI muscle today, and we have to start helping our people understand the capability of AI, how to make good informed decisions around its use. So we've got good, responsible, practical applications. We need to embed it into everyday workflows and activities. So that means, Google Works, Gemini or Copilot or a combination of different AI assistants or business productivity tools might be getting Numa from Arcanum and deploying it across your business using that one, or AutoHive, hiring someone who can build AI agents. And so you end up with this digital workforce of AI agents that are plugging around, doing things. There's different ways of integrating and embedding AI into organizations depending on your budget and your technical capability and all of those different sorts of things. And that's what we help companies figure out. And then we do a lot of training around tools and tech.
Love it. Yeah, it's need a few more people like yourselves to push the education and agenda. And I think there's also a big mindset shift that businesses need to go through around how they actually implement AI. And what I mean by that is they assume that just because a human used to do a task, that the agent that they build or the assistant, the process should follow the same steps. But automation and AI isn't about copying humans. It's about building the most efficient system possible, right? So think about handling data, for example. Like instead of creating 8 separate workflows, because that's how the human used to do it, there was 8 different data sources, and then trying to build an AI automation or agent that mimics that kind of workflow, how could you just make that data collection process at the beginning of the agentic workflow and have the agent have access to all of that data, right? That's a key shift I think a lot of businesses need to go through is, when you rethink the data intake system, the rest of the architecture gets far simpler and more scalable, which means you can do more and you can scale efforts rather than having to rely on, call it skeuomorphic approaches to things that were done one way and we should just do them in the new way with a new technology.
Yeah, it's kind of like every business has disparate data sets.
Mm.
So one idea is we just take a generative AI platform, an AI for business platform, and we just chuck it on top and we just integrate everything into it, right?
Yeah.
So you've then got an AI system that's got to look to all of these different data sets to find the answer, right? It's
Yeah.
kind of like when you go and ask ChatGPT a question, it's got its trained model, sure, but it's going to all of these different websites and looking for structured snippets and this sort of things, and then creating a blended search result back, right?
Yeah.
So that's pretty easy and pretty doable right now, but that's not future proof.
Agree.
The future proof is thinking about all of those different data sets and bringing them together in one source as a graph rag or some kind of database where you've got everything sitting together and you're either running hub and spoke off that, or you've got agents that are doing some daisy chain workflows as they go down, but you've got one central data source that it doesn't matter what the tools and solutions are that plug and play around it. That can change.
Mm.
It's that your central data is always going to talk to whatever. And so having all of your data stuck in Salesforce or stuck in HubSpot might be really great for where you are right now, but I don't necessarily think that your customer data being locked in a CRM tool is going to be the best path forward.
Agree. And additionally, I think it doesn't create defensibility for businesses, right? Because if I'm connecting to my CRM and then I'm connecting into MCP or different public tools that everyone else has access to, then what's my advantage at the end of the day? Sure, I've got some proprietary data internally, but the advantage shifts when you can connect into proprietary data and internal workbooks and playbooks and custom scoring models. These become differentiators. And when agents can access those tools which are exclusive to certain businesses, that creates a defensibility which isn't available to those who aren't moving along that AI maturity scale over time.
You're introducing or perhaps layering into this conversation a really important concept, right? Which is context.
Yeah.
So we spoke about the iwi documenting and recording their stories and digitizing their stories, the same as what a business can do to talk about all the different customers, the solutions, the problems they've solved, all of these different types of things. Some of that might be stored in document, but
Mm.
most of it is going to be stored in people's brains, right? In
Yeah.
lived experience. And the lived experience is the ones that we need to be downloading and saving. So this is context.
Mm.
And I think kind of prompting is really important, but part of crafting a great prompt is contextualization. And the more context you can and understanding that you can provide some, it's exactly like having a new colleague or a new teammate, right? Join your team. You've hired someone new. The more context you spend time in the first 90 days just talking and sharing stories and introducing them to the people in the business that will be able to help them solve problems and customers that do this. It's just a download of information, right? Or they're just a sponge for the first 90 days.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same with AI.
Treat them as a really capable intern, right? It's that whole concept.
Do it in a tenth of the time.
In a tenth of the time, yeah, with access to the data when you can point it in the right direction. How do you think about the value of humans and businesses moving forward? Like, what skills should we be prioritizing that perhaps for our careers to date have been a priority that may be less important moving forward? And there's the obvious areas where we are not going to need certain skill sets that we've learned. And then there are those which we talk about in high levels, like building relationships, building connection, critical judgment, problem solving, strategy. Like, what do you think is most important across that array of kind of skill sets we need moving forward as humans?
We're already seeing evidence now that business leaders are looking for critical thinking, right? Critical thinkers, people who can use AI tools and make and have a good understanding of how to contextualize that, how to judge it, to critique it, to make sure that what the AI tool is coming out is relevant, useful, correct. Da, da, da. So critical thinking is absolutely vital. Critical thinking leads into your ability to be able to ask good questions, to help to ask good questions, both of the people that you're working with, but also the AI tools, right? How are we using? And so this is the collaboration. These AI assistants becoming digital colleagues, digital co-workers that are running alongside you. So what are the questions that you need to ask them? Because asking the AI what questions you should be asking the AI is probably only going to return you a certain perspective. And being able to, I mean, I always thought that university was just there to teach us how to think, right? And to some extent it is, and it should be about how to think about that particular topic, right? That you want to. And so there's a place for those things. But yeah, critical thinking, asking good questions, and being able to build relationships, right? Language is really important. You need to be able to have a good grasp of language and people and psychology, both to use AI tools well, but also to build those partnerships and relationships that you need in your business.
Totally agree. And a lot of that is difficult to learn until you go through the reps of having to think that way. And I think another lens that we'll start to see, and we've seen it in startups for years, right? The previous way of working, I suppose, in legacy might have been I write a document, I wait for a meeting to ask for permission, I request something from my colleague, I fight for budget, I get stuck in development cycles, all those painful things that we go through. And I think what we'll see is these AI fluent people, and I'm seeing it with a couple of young people coming through at work. And I spoke to a guy yesterday down in Christchurch. They are AI native and not in the fashion that I'd seen before, right? It's something that's hard to describe. It's more about how they operate. You know, that they're not trying to steer like a ship through a canal and it's slow and bloated. Like they're very much there just to build. You know, they're not waiting. They're ready to kind of move quick, learn quickly. And I suppose when failure is cheap with technology like AI, then speed becomes your strategy. And if AI is the default, then your kind of output just explodes because you're not waiting on anyone else. You're not waiting for permission because you're not stuck in meetings. You're literally mocking up a graphic for your designer to go and, take to the 100%, or you're building an MVP for the development team to understand what you really mean when you talk about a product. So I think the critical piece, the human element, the connections, but just that mentality of how to operate is a new skill set that we're seeing come through with younger people. And hopefully we can see a lot of the older generations begin to adapt as well.
Yeah, it's freedom to be curious, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose you're in workshops all day, every day with businesses. What is something you hear in workshops that tells you a particular team isn't ready, or what's something you bang your head against the wall day in, day out that you hear from different organizations?
I think the biggest one is data privacy, right? So earlier this year, Meta got their wrists slapped because they were publishing public prompts that people had been asking of Meta AI, right? Sometimes quite personal questions that were being published in the Discovery tab. And so people have just blown that out to everything I type into AI is going to be publicly available. They must all operate in exactly the same way. And so we've just got to break through this misconception or this misunderstanding around how these AI tools work, the differences in between the platforms and their user contracts, their privacy terms, and how they use your data or not, and how to safeguard yourself, how to make good informed decisions, right? So it's a bit of anxiety which is born out of a lack of knowledge, is probably the biggest one. The second is like, oh, it's probably too complicated. Like, I'm not a prompt engineer. I just couldn't use them.
Okay.
Have you ever, like, it's free, right? It's free in the browser. You can actually just go in. You don't even have to sign up to anything. You can just go and ask chat.com a question, anything. Why has not everyone on the planet done this?
You could ask it how to use it.
Yeah, and that's the best thing. It's like, you're an expert in AI. Ask me one question at a time to you can learn about me, and then give me two obvious and two non-obvious ways that I could be using AI in my personal or professional life. Right? That's the prompt. Go.
Simple as that.
And you'll just see ChatGPT will run through two or three questions with you, and it'll be like, hey, you can do this, this, and this. And then you go, okay, tell me about that one. And how do I do that? And what tools can I use? And what's the good prompts to be using? And and just like you would have a conversation with someone else.
It's about being human and being more curious to use AI more and more to understand how else I can use AI. That's, I think, the through line there. I suppose
Yeah.
you and I are very optimistic and I guess bullish on this, and putting down a cup of Kool-Aid for a second. Like, what do you feel? We can't shy away from the risks that this can create to the workforce, to society, to what it means to be human. What are those discussions like in your head and with people that you're having around what we should be doing? I mean, the government conversation, the societal conversation seems to be ever more important. But what's your take on that whole risk spectrum?
There's no doubt that in the next 5 years, the skills we need for our business to operate are going to change. And as business leaders, we need to take responsibility for creating sustainable business models and training for sustainable career development, right? So the skills that you need in your business are going to change. That means right now, you need to be preparing your people to adapt. And the best way to prepare them to adapt is to teach them about the tools and how to work for, right? You cannot be ready to adapt in the new AI era without learning about AI, right? So just got to start building that muscle. We need to be able to having those conversations. It's not like we're going to wake up one day and we don't need any of these roles anymore, or everyone's just getting made redundant. It's just not going to be something that happens like that. But it is going to happen faster than what's ever happened before. And it is going to have an impact on our economy and our workforce in 10 years, not 50 years. And we are not having the conversations about this at any level in New Zealand enough and with any degree of urgency around it. And we just typically run in response. So we're always going to be on the back foot with stuff. You can't turn this off. You can't slow it down. The cat's out of the bag. You've got to run with it now, right? We all have to learn to work with this new technology and figure it out. And that's going to take some commitment from a few leaders, a few politicians that might lose their seat over those calls, but ultimately those calls might be the best thing for the country long term. So yeah, I don't think that New Zealand's necessarily in any worse position to anyone else around the world on this, but we're certainly not investing. There's a lack of government, there's a lack of public and private sector investment in research, in building sovereign AI models, in education, and we're only just seeing public service getting access to AI tools with perhaps a little bit of training, right? I'm here, by the way, we're doing this, right? We've just finished a series of workshops for regional, the RBP program for growth advisors and business mentors, right? We're doing this on a daily basis, teaching the teachers, training the trainers, creating AI ambassadors out of our AI Academy, right? We're trying to chip away at moving the needle on this.
Good on you.
And we've just got to keep having the conversations, but it'll be a gradual thing, but gradual will be a hell of a lot faster than what it's ever been before.
I mean, change has never been comfortable, and humans don't like change, right? We're creatures of habit. And unfortunately, or fortunately, it's the same as a business in a sense that it needs it to be a strategic imperative for change within the business and top-down leadership. It's no different with a country. So the more
there's got to be commercial drivers, right? You have to anchor this in some commercial drivers. So either it's going to be competition, you've got someone else breathing down your back trying to steal your customers.
Yep.
Or it's going to be you got someone breathing down your back taking your people, your employees, because you're not the cool place to work anymore because you're not doing AI. These other companies are. You just have to cut costs because that's the nature of your business. Is actually you're a funded model, and so you've got to be able to deliver more with less. Most businesses, in order to survive and thrive, need to grow. And to grow, you need capacity. And that means actually, we need to stop thinking about just putting more bums on seats to solve problems. We have to use technology to solve these problems and to optimize the way that we work. And AI is a way, along with all of the other digital technologies that you can leverage to achieve that. And it's not that AI is going to, I walk into businesses with challenges and I'm like, you don't need AI to solve that problem. Right? You can actually do that with the CRM that you've already got. So just because we can doesn't mean we do or should with these tools. And so it's about unlocking capability and unlocking potential. And, for some businesses, they're just going to have to go kicking and screaming into the digital world and actually deploy some cloud infrastructure because they've been running on-prem since forever. It's much easier to deploy AI when you're running in the cloud than it is on-prem. Not we can't do it. It's just, a little bit more expensive. So it's These are the challenges. It's got to be anchored in strategy and purpose. And we need leaders to realize that it's either going to be the thing that shuts them down or it's going to become a competitive strength, right?
Absolutely. Great way to finish off. And are you okay to close up with a quick fire round before we say goodbye?
Go on then,
Alrighty. ChatGPT, Claude, or Gemini?
Claude.
What's the soft spot for Claude? Is it the data privacy piece?
Yeah, but also building artifacts, so coding, creating apps. The only thing that Claude doesn't really do well is the image generation, but I far prefer Midjourney for that.
Fair play. Would you rather be building and selling in Europe or the US based on their regulatory environment?
US.
Seems an obvious one to me, but not to everybody, which is fine. What's the most overhyped AI trend right now for you?
Vibe coding.
Vibe coding.
I don't
Vibe revenue, vibe marketing,
know.
vibe whatever. I love it. Open source models or closed?
Open source.
Okay. What about one New Zealand company that's quietly doing great AI work that flies under the radar?
Oh gosh, now you've got me. That flies under the radar.
Isn't there a strong one coming out of Christchurch working with the police?
HeartLab.
What do they do?
They have built a platform to help cardiologists do a lot of their reporting and analysis, amongst many other things.
Wicked. Have to look them up. And lastly, what's your number one recommendation for people getting started in AI?
Pick a tool, any tool. Pick any AI assistant. Spend half an hour a day, if you can, 10 minutes a day, getting to know it. Working with it, pay your money, pay the $40. It's worth it. Right?
Mhm.
And spend half an hour a day talking to the AI tool to get used to it, to understand how to use it, start building your AI muscle. In 6 months' time, you are going to be so far ahead of your peers, you will look back and wonder how on earth you got any work done.
Love it. I agree. I think I say to people that $40 is the best $40 that most people never spent when it comes to AI and paid subscriptions.
The only problem with that is for people like you and I, we've got about 10 lots of 40.
I've got to filter out the crap, right? Awesome. Well, thank you to Justin for joining us today, and thank you to our listeners for tuning in. Please subscribe to the channel for weekly episodes and to hear more from the people building New Zealand's AI future. Until next time, thanks for tuning in to the AI Corner.